are, and welcome everybody to yet another fantastic women professionals in the criminal justice system. I cannot think of a more tongue-tying way to describe this, but we've been very fortunate to have interviewed a number of women who are very successful, such as our guest tonight, Professor Angela Gardner-Ragland. I want to say that right, who is extraordinarily accomplished, has overcome a lot of different things she's going to talk about tonight and really help you set the template for your own success that you can model yourself after. These do work. So please pay close attention. This is going out to all the students in the criminal justice program and perhaps beyond. So welcome, Professor. Thank you for taking the time to do this tonight. And as I mentioned before we started recording, that I said, I looked at your announcements and I said they're a wee bit too humble, a little too modest. So I said, no, there's more to that, MECI. So you've won awards, you've all this recognition. You've been doing this for several years now successfully. Let's start from the beginning before we get to all the accolades that people have cast upon you, et cetera. Now, how did this all begin for you? What was your journey like as a younger person before you got into this? And not that you're old, okay? Just want to say, just a couple of weeks ago. Let's go.
Right, right.
And I'm going to go off camera, so there's no distraction.
Okay.
So fire away, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. C. I'm excited about sharing my journey with our students as well as faculty and beyond. I hope that my journey, my story will be able to inspire and help others. So my interest in CJ actually started when I was probably in middle school, when we had Murder, She Wrote and Nancy Drew novels. We didn't have CSI and Criminal Minds. So that kind of tells you how old I am, or roundabout. So I was a big Nancy Drew reader. And fast forward to college years, my mother wanted me to go to medical school. My dad wanted me to be a veterinarian. Well, I wanted criminal justice, and I didn't quite know how to tell them at that time, because that was not something that women typically went into so much back then. So I finally got up the nerve to tell them, and I majored in criminal justice and graduated. And it was kind of difficult to get a job in probation parole, which is what I really, really wanted. I worked for a little while as a legal assistant, and then I started applying to the prison system in the state where I live. And I could not get an interview. Even though I graduated magna cum laude and studied hard and had a clean record, I could not get an interview. So I kept applying every week, usually on Tuesdays or Thursdays. I said either they're going to get tired of seeing me, and when the applications come across the desk, they'll chunk them, or they're going to give me an interview and decide whether or not to give me a chance. So about 2 or 3 months down the road, they finally gave me an interview, and I got the job. It was a 900 male correctional facility, medium custody facility. And I had always said I was never going to work in a prison. Well, I could not get into probation parole because of the competition in the area that I lived in. So here I am. I've applied at a medium custody facility. I've gotten a job, and I start. And it was truly an eye-opener for me for more reasons than one, not only because it was a male facility, medium custody, but also I realized that there were a lot of male officers, if you will, as well as administrators, who really were not excited about women entering the field. I had some that actually pulled me aside and said, you don't need to be here. I had several supervisors who would not back me up in write-ups with some of the male inmates. They had to sign off, and some refused and said, you know, you don't belong here. And I even applied for a promotion down the road and did not get it because an administrator called me in and said, why are you here? You're a female, shouldn't be here. So I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't or I shouldn't, I'm going to prove to you otherwise. So I stayed, and at the same time, I was applying for probation parole. I ended up getting an interview in probation parole, and I got the job. And I did that for a while. Again, that was another eye opener. Although, probation parole, law enforcement, prisons, we are all public servants. That doesn't mean that it's easy. Um, but it is a difficult profession, especially when you're a woman, or way back when women were not so accepted into the field. It was an eye opener, but I'm very grateful for that experience. But likewise, my prisons experience as well. So I did that for a while as well in two different counties. And at that time, the first county that I worked in, we probably had four probation parole officers, and I think now they have about 10. So that tells you what our caseloads were like. And it did not matter. We had sex offenders, we had people that had been convicted of DWIs. It was just a range of offenders. So, and for me, it was difficult because, at times you had to take people back to court that had families, and their probation at times, was either modified or revoked. So it was very difficult, but you always made sure before you took them back to court that you had done all that you could do. So again, very grateful for that experience. So after that, I started applying to be an instructor, a criminal justice instructor. And that was ultimately what I wanted to do. So I applied, and I'll never forget the day that I started as a community college full-time instructor here in North Carolina. I remember several of my coworkers, my new coworkers, actually meeting me along the breezeway and saying how glad they were to have a woman in criminal justice.
Yes.
Finally, because they had never had a female in criminal justice. So I was the first. And as a matter of fact, one of the first meetings that I attended with our local agencies, there were several people who thought I was the secretary, not the,
Yeah.
not the new instructor, which, it was offensive. It was. I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't, but I was offended by it, and I made that known.
Good.
So, at first, I think there were some that didn't want to accept me quite as much, but we learned to work together. Some of us worked together for 20 some years. So, but anyway, so I did that for 20 some years in education. I've been with Southern New Hampshire now for 2.5 years, and I absolutely love it. And I plan to stay as long as Dr. C and the.
Oh no, you're not going anywhere. But continue.
Well, thank you,
Oh
thank you,
no,
thank
no.
you.
I'm gonna lock you in for quite
As
some
long
time.
as
But
you will have me, I will
oh
be.
my goodness, yes.
I love working for Southern New Hampshire University. But one thing I do want to say to our students, Dr. C, is how important it is to give back and serve in the community.
Yes.
Even as a student, one of the things that I always did with my community college students, and it's kind of difficult when you're teaching online
Right.
to do that, was require that they participate in some type of community service.
Yes.
And I would get out there with them. We would feed families. We cleaned highways. We did all kinds of things. And I still see a lot of my students now, and they'll say, Miss G, which is what I prefer to go by. I am still volunteering for Guardian ad Litem, or I am still volunteering with the local orphanage down the street. We have two in our service area. So please get out there and remember, not only are you serving your community, but you are also building your resume as well. So I'm just a huge fan and proponent of community service. So here I am. I have retired from the community college system recently, and I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm enjoying my retirement. Again, still teaching for Southern New Hampshire. I plan to do it for as long as I can.
Yeah,
And I am also playing with grandkids and
nice.
just enjoying this next chapter of my life. So, Dr. C, I'm going to turn it back over to
Yes,
you. But before I do that, I would like to say to our students or whomever,
yes.
if you have questions or of me or my path, my story, anything that you need, please feel free to reach out to me. I do have an open virtual door, if you will, and I can be reached at a.gardner dot got to get it right, a.gardner-ragland at snhu.edu.
I'll make sure that gets into the university-wide messaging when the recording goes out. That's great.
Please do,
Oh,
please do.
absolutely. Beyond thanks. And I took a lot of notes while you were talking because I didn't want these things to get lost. And I think such a shame when stories get lost. And a lot of these stories that we look at, like you mentioned, the stories that inspired you, but your story is inspirational.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
it really is. No thanks necessary. I mean, what you've done, I want students to hear what I heard and tell me if I'm wrong. But I heard a professional who grew up as an independent thinker in
you.
spite of being, yeah, right, an independent thinker wanting to forge ahead on her own and pursue her dreams and goals, period. Without,
Right.
and that's hard to do when your parents want you to do something else. There's no question about it.
Well, my
Persistence.
father called me. I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but
No,
my
please.
father used to always say, in a good way, that I'm very stubborn. And I'll take it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a badge
Mm,
of courage. I mean, you're
mm,
holding your ground on your beliefs and your dreams. So, students, listen to that.
mm.
Capital P, persistence, a tremendous amount of grit,
Thank you.
extraordinarily intelligent, but you didn't let your intellect rest or just, kind of just dissipate. You applied it and you knew that it was something you had earned. Bravery as well. When you said that, you were basically the lone woman, the icebreaker, the trailblazer in the correctional system, which, in spite of how much you can describe it, I don't think people can really understand how emotionally and psychologically distressing and hard that can be to get up every day knowing you've got to go back to that.
It was hard.
Okay. Yep. And you know what? That's something that can't be taught. You've got to dig deep. So I heard that was just absolutely unequivocally just it's hard to describe that. It really
Thank
is in a short video. You overcame a great deal of resentment. That's a capital R. And that's every single day you were there. And you qualified for promotions and didn't get it. You faced gender issues at the very least,
you. Right.
which is just absolutely mind-boggling. On behalf, I'm going to be honest with you, this isn't just because you're here and all that. Really, literally, on behalf of everyone who works in this system, either working gainfully now or retired, thank you for what you did. And
Thank
personally, on my side house, just bringing my sister is a retired police captain out of Hallandale Beach, Florida.
you.
And, a lot of what you said, was very similar to what she had to overcome too. And you're not the only, women professional told me that, holy mackerel, you went
Right.
through the gates of hell to get where you are today. So I want to make sure students please understand this, that what she's done was not done overnight. You got the
Thank
job in probation and parole. It was a difficult profession because women were not accepted.
you.
And I'm old enough to tell you, I remember that. I remember that distinctly. Like, holy mackerel. I mean, there was a big problem. So, would you mind being partnered up? I remember the oral board question. Would you mind being partnered up with a woman police officer? And I'm sitting there going, what's the problem? Why are you even asking me that? Like, what? Whatever,
Right.
you know? And then you had a heavy caseload, very difficult. So the other thing that came out was I understand that really, and I understand what you went through because these people had lives, they were human beings and families. So you
Mhm.
have to have compassion and wear your heart on your sleeve in spite of the fact that it might get stepped on. So compassion drives that. Thank you for sharing that too. The
Thank
fact that yes, you were a trailblazer and then you morphed into an incredible academic instructor, now fully retired. Man, if I so jealous out here, no, just kidding. But and the other thing that you said too, which is extremely important, and I've heard that echoed a number of times by people like yourself who are very successful. You've got to give back.
Mhm.
You've got
Mhm.
to do it, and you've got to do it for the right reasons. I know you mentioned resume, but I remember I interviewed Delroy Schmoss, who was the chief of police in Ferguson, Missouri, post Michael Brown. And he came in there. Had been a Dade County police officer, and he did a remarkable job. And he told me, I look, you can train the hand, but you can't. But you can train the hand, but you can't teach the heart. So one of the things he looked for, really kind of reflected what you said, was he was looking for that social character. And what have you done before you applied here for people outside of your own world in a different community? What have you
Mhm.
done for them? So those things that you brought to the table, I just wanted to reiterate those for emphasis sake for the students that are going to watch this and absorb this. And I recommend you watch it more than once to pull down what Professor Ragland has given to you tonight. These are gems that you can live on and plan on as well. Wow. And the place, let's go 1 second because I want to talk about some of the accolades. Okay. So
Oh, yeah, if you must.
in honor, can I just read this for a second? Okay. I just, and you can please elaborate. In honor of March, Women's History Month, Vance Granville Community College is recognizing people of the many strong, hello, and talented women that are part of the VGCC community in a special feature series called Her Story. Today, in this
Oh,
first installment in that series, they would like to highlight you, Professor Gardner, your Dean of Business and Applied Technologies and Public Service, and you were nominated by the Vice President. Tell us about that.
that,
That's incredible.
well, thank you. That was actually the first time that our college did that. I was just surprised. I was shocked and very honored for him to do that. So I had been with the college, for years and so forth, and several positions, several promotions, and just had a passion for our community, for our students. And he recognized that, the college recognized that. So I was very honored by that. As you can tell, I'm
Yeah, I can see it. It says, you look behind her, it says, I am humble, I am modest, and all that. So if you're in her classes, there's a lot more to her announcements and bio than meets the eye. Okay. So,
yeah.
but it's up to me to lift that lid to say, look what's under the hood over here. We have a rock star that's actually
Thank,
taking the time to do all that you do for our students. And so, on behalf of the students that are in your courses, outside the courses, throughout the whole university, thank you, Professor, for everything you've done. Thank you for taking the time out. Thank God the storms didn't hit us again. This is
yeah.
the sequel, everyone. We tried to do it before, but boom. So, long story. Thank you. Any closing comments, words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
No, well, other than, again, if the students have any questions
Thank you.
or, comments, I encourage you to please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you, and students that have been in my classes will tell you. I will help you in any way that I can. This is truly, truly my passion. I love teaching. So, thank you, Dr. C, for this opportunity.
No thanks necessary at all. Thank you very much. This was a selfish act on behalf of our students, so but they kind of say, "I don't know where to go." Yes, you do. Watch this video, and okay, we got it. So, with that said,
Please.
thank you. Have a wonderful evening, Professor Gardner, and thank you for all that you do. And we'll talk again. I think we should have a sequel at some point in time, but
I would love to. I
that would
would
be
love to.
great.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Bye
Bye.
bye.